Good afternoon, Realtors. This is Nick Kromitis, CEO, checking in with you today. It is December the 8th. Happy holidays, everyone. We've got a special treat for you today. Let me introduce our guest speaker today and jump right into the program. We're very fortunate. We're honored to have Gene Marks with us today. He's a past columnist for both the New York Times and the Washington Post. Gene now writes regularly for The Hill, the Philadelphia Inquirer, Forbes, Inc. magazine, Entrepreneur magazine, and The Guardian. Gene has written 5 books on business management, specifically geared towards small and medium-sized companies. His most recent is Want More Cash, 100+ ideas and strategies for increasing your company's cash flow this year. Nationally, Gene appears regularly on Fox Business and MSNBC, as well as the John Batchelor Show and Sirius XM's Wharton Business Channel, where he talks about the financial, economic, and technology issues that affect business leaders today. Gene is also the host of 2 popular podcasts for The Hartford and Paychecks. Through his keynotes and breakout sessions, Gene helps businesses and business owners, their executives and managers understand the political, economic, and tech trends that will affect their companies, and most importantly, actions that they can take to continue to grow and profit. Gene owns and operates the Marks Group PC, a highly successful 10-person firm that provides technology and consulting services to small and medium-sized businesses. With the uncertainty that we're facing in the market, I don't think there's any better time than to have someone like Gene joining us. Prior to starting the Marks Group, Gene, who's a CPA, certified public accountant, spent 9 years in the entrepreneurial services arm of the international consulting firm KPMG in Philadelphia, where he was a senior manager. So Realtors, please let's give a warm South Carolina welcome to Gene Marks. Gene, thank you for being with us.
Thank you, and thank you everyone for joining me today. You know, I got to cut down on that introduction. It just seems like it takes too long to get through and like keeping us back from actually getting to the content. But I appreciate you guys taking a few minutes out today to spend with me. And you know, here's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about a downturn in the economy, and I want to stress with you, particularly if you've been in the business that you're in right now, not to panic and not to freak out. For people that have been around for as long as I've been around, for anybody that's experienced in running a business, and I have my own business outside of Philadelphia, but I also cover small and mid-sized businesses around the country, including South Carolina. You'll find anybody that's experienced, particularly in the real estate industry, this stuff happens. This is what it's all about. The world is about cycles. We're heading into a bit of a down cycle. I'm going to show you why I think we are. But not so bad in South Carolina, which is a bit of a bright light. Most importantly, after I share with you some data, I really want to kind of dig into offering some help, some strategies, some things that you should be doing now and over the next few months to just navigate your way through a potential downturn. Again, this is not a catastrophic thing. We're not looking at 2008, 2009, but we are looking at a slowing economy across the country and also in South Carolina. It's just, you know, if you're an individual realtor, I have advice for you. If you're running a firm where you have agents, you've got employees, even contractors, I have advice for you as well that you want to keep into consideration. So first of all, let's look at the numbers just so we're aware of what's going on, okay? In the first 2 quarters of this year, gross domestic product fell both quarters. When you have negative gross domestic product, that's like the textbook definition in the world of economists of a recession. Some people weren't calling it a recession at the time, but that's what we were seeing. However, in the 3rd quarter, which just ended at the end of September, the economy actually grew 2.6%. In fact, this is out of date. This was revised up to 2.9%. So we had a bit of a growth in the economy in this last quarter, which is good heading into the Christmas season. But there is some, mixed news around this. For example, in the real estate business, home builder confidence, according to the National Association of Home Builders, has been plunging since its highs that the association saw back in during pre-COVID days. You can see how it has dropped, and that is not good for home builders. In addition to that, mortgage rates have doubled over the past year, as you well know. I mean, before the mortgage rates were anywhere from 2 to 3%. Now they're like close to 7% nationally around the country. That clearly puts a damper on people that want to, buy homes. I get that. That is not, that is something that we have to deal with. In addition to that, houses themselves, when you look at the Housing Affordability Index by the National Association of Realtors, are actually 32% less affordable to potential buyers than they were a year ago. This is nationally, and that takes into consideration the cost, the purchase price of a house, as well as the cost of financing and other factors. So that is not a good sign for potential home buyers. You can see the way that it has trended down. Existing home sales since the beginning of the year are off by 30% nationally. So we are seeing that trend across the country as mortgage rates have increased and purchase, and real estate price themselves is still, even though decreasing a little bit, which I'll talk about in a minute, is still, still at some levels where, the home sales themselves have been affected. Existing home sales in this region, in the South Carolina region, almost at the same nationally. They are off by about 26% since a year ago. So we're seeing that drop occur across the region, and that is something that's a trend that you can actually see is continuing on its downward path. So you always look at this data not at a point of time, but where the trend is going, and you can see how the trend has been over the past few months. No plateauing yet or uptick in that number. The median sales price, though, in the South Carolina region, still up about 8% over a year ago. So not as high as it was earlier this year when it really peaked. This was back in April and May. But still, even though it is falling and sales prices themselves are declining in the South Carolina region, they're still 8% higher than they were a year ago. So that gives some indication of the strength of the South Carolina real estate economy, okay? Listing prices are down. People are listing 4% only since June. So they are down, but they're still about 27% higher than they were back pre-pandemic. So even though sales prices are down 8%, listing prices are down about 4% since the middle of the year, we're still seeing prices, very strong market still inside. Again, trending down, so that's what we have to be, paying attention to. But really, for the most part, still, relatively strong. Housing inventory is up, unfortunately, about 27% in South Carolina, but it's still 50% below the levels that we saw in 2017. So there are still a lot less houses that are on the market that were around, 4 or 5 years ago. And that is, I think, it is what's keeping up prices higher than what we're seeing around the country. So that's also a good sign for the region. And the median days on market has gone up to about 48 days. It was as low as 17 days earlier this year. But again, even though it's up to 48 days, it's still half the levels that we saw back in 2017 to 2019. So homes are turning around, at a slower pace than they were earlier in 2022, but still at a pretty good clip compared to the way it was pre-pandemic. Again, still trending in the wrong direction. So we're still seeing that moving towards more time on the market, which is not good for this industry. But still, as I'm speaking right now and through the end of November, the numbers themselves are fairly strong. Now let's look across at other factors in the economy. And because the economy, all these things affect wealth and affect the ability of selling to commercial customers as well as individual customers. Manufacturing. This is the Institute of Supply Managers. This is a great metric to follow to see how manufacturing is going around the country. This is an association of purchasing managers, and they poll them every month. They get a lot of data from their companies. They divide it out between the service industry and manufacturing industry. Anything over 50 is an increase. Anything below it is a contraction. Right now, we're at contraction levels in manufacturing. So that's nationally around the country. We are seeing manufacturing itself really kind of, moving downwards into, recessionary territory. And again, this is as of the end of November, so it's pretty current numbers. So that's manufacturing. Consumer sentiment is another one. According to the University of Michigan, at 5-year lows heading into the holiday season. I'm not predicting a very strong sales of holiday season. probably an increase of 3 to 4% in retail sales, still significantly below what we saw over the past couple of years. And small business sentiment. I mean, there are 30 million small businesses in this country that make up half of this country's GDP, employ more than half of the country's employees. And, we can see right now that the levels in small business sentiment really are as low as they were back in 2014 and still on a downward trend as well. So when small business owners, these are contractors, people in the construction industry, as well as others that are, in the business, when they're not feeling confident about the economy, that hurts spending, that hurts employment, that hurts hiring and investment as well. So that's another factor we have to keep a close eye on as well, okay? And then there's logistics. Heading into the holiday season, FedEx recently reporting that their volume is down about 11%, not a good sign. And even in the ports, I mean, remember about a year ago, there was all this backlog in the ports and there was supply chain issues and that was having a big impact. And what are we going to do about that? Well, all of that stuff is gone now. In fact, cargo ship owners are now canceling some recordings. If you go to the ports in Long Beach, California, and in the Mid-Atlantic area, they've all caught up. The backlogs are not really there anymore. In fact, there's a lot of empty containers coming in as global demand and shipping has declined as well. Again, trending down. And it gets back to interest rates as well. We know that, the Federal Reserve is raising interest rates. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. The federal funds rate, which is the rate that the Fed lends money to the banks so the banks can lend it out to us. That's the cost for the banks. Well, that's up to close to 4%. And it's going to go up probably another 50 basis points, like up to like maybe 4.5% within the next month. Remember, it was only 0.25% as recently as March. So we've had a huge jump in interest rates to try and control inflation, and that's having a huge impact on mortgage rates as well as commercial rates for anybody here that's selling to businesses that are buying properties and them trying to get financing for these properties. That cost of financing has really been skyrocketing compared to what it was in the beginning of the year, and that impacts our sales of these properties and will continue to impact our sales throughout the next year. So we have to keep that in mind as well. So all that it ain't great, right? I mean, you can see where all the trends are going, and the trend as we're heading into 2023 is slowness, right? I mean, again, nothing catastrophic, but definitely some slowness. Now, having said that, there are some good things going on in the economy, okay? I mean, for example, if any of you guys have been through an airport anytime recently, the TSA gives us levels of travel. The dotted line is the comparison, the percent of what it was pre-pandemic. We're at about 100% of pre-pandemic levels right now of travelers through the airports. That's good for the people that are in the hospitality and leisure and travel business. Again, maybe you're selling to customers that are in that industry or to businesses that are in that industry looking to buy properties. That's an industry to go after because they're on the up and up and have certainly recovered from COVID, which is certainly good news. Household net worth, with all the talk about housing become less affordable and people holding back on their spending, let us not forget that household net worth, although it took a bit of a hit because the stock market has decreased about 20% since the beginning of the year, even so, still at historically high levels when you compare going back 10 years, 20 years before. So people do have savings. Nobody's panicking yet. There is money out there to spend on property, okay? Retail sales, I mentioned before, at an all-time high. That's the blue number that you're looking at here. Retail real estate itself, right now, there are vacancies have gone down, rents are up, more stores are opening than closing. There has been a trend in the retail industry towards more, brick and mortar as opposed to online. People are realizing more that they need to have an on-site presence. A lot of shoppers wanting to get back out there after the pandemic and see people face to face. So that's certainly good news. Unemployment still remains at record lows. So even if I gave you that negative information and GDP being negative and manufacturing and all that, people are still employed. It's kind of tough to say we have a bad economy when you've got less than 4% unemployment going on. It's at historical levels. And by the way, even in South Carolina, unemployment levels, you can see from here, is about 3.3% as well. Still very low compared to the rest of the country as well, lower than the national average. So again, people are working, which basically means they got paychecks. So if a property makes enough sense for them, or a new house, or they're out there. This is not people that are panicking yet when we've got unemployment rates that are that low. An overall economic index. This is judged every year. This comes from the Federal Reserve of Philadelphia. just a coincidence, by the way, but they do their coincident economic index, and they take various factors that they think of, of hours that are working in manufacturing activity. They do this for each state. And if you look at South Carolina's economic index, it's been on the rise. I mean, it's plateaued a bit over the past few months, but still you can tell at historically high levels from what we saw before. So not so bad, not so bad. And then on the services side, I told you from the Institute of Supply Managers, their service data their manufacturing data was down. Service industry is not doing so bad. In fact, service industry, remember, anything over 50 is growth, anything under 50 is contraction. The rough times during the pandemic, but people that are in the business and consumer services industry, that's landscaping, construction, architects, accountants, lawyers, they've been in significant growth area and continue to grow as well. Again, the kind of customers that you want to be going after, okay? So that's also important. More importantly as well is actual data from the banks. And as of the third quarter, this is back in October, so it's a little less than 2 months ago that we were looking at this data. Wells Fargo's CEO, Charles Scharf, goes, both consumer and business customers remain in a strong financial condition. Even Jamie Dimon, who is the CEO of JP Morgan Chase, not exactly an optimist about the economy, he has to admit that consumers remained healthy. There's plenty of job openings, still ample household savings. Just about their credit card spending is up, bad loans are down. So this is actual data from the biggest banks in the country, basically saying, like, at least as of the end of September, the economy was still going okay. Why is that? This is why. This is why. This is a map of the United States. We live in a giant, giant country. Look at the size of some of the states. I don't know if this is anything to brag about, but like the economy of South Carolina is as big as the economy of Iraq. Okay. All right, well, we can put that aside. But the economy of Texas is bigger than Canada. The economy of Florida, your southern neighbors, bigger than Mexico. The economy of California, with all of its challenges, the fourth largest economy in the world, bigger than the United Kingdom. So you can't just say, is the US in a recession? You have to look at the region, you have to look at the industry, you have to look at the type of businesses. In South Carolina, really overall, slowdown, but not a significant recession. Not as bad as it would be in some states that are more oil dependent, or some states that are dependent more on manufacturing, for example, or those types of industries. Certain states themselves in certain areas are doing better than others, and here in South Carolina, not as bad as the rest of the country. So parts of the economy are in slowdown. South Carolina and real estate has cooled, but the regional housing market is still relatively strong. One other thing that I want to just quickly go through and make sure that you're familiar with, which is just overall inflation, which has indirect impact on the cost of real estate as well. People are asking, has inflation plateaued? Is it going up? What's the deal with inflation? Here's the deal with inflation. We're going to continue to see inflation throughout most of 2023, and they're going to be at levels anywhere from 6 to 9%, which is significantly higher than what we've ever seen in years past. It's leveling out a little bit, but it's still up there. How do I know that? Here's how I know that. Because when you look at the consumer price index of inflation, you see that it's cooling a little bit, still at around 7.7%. Even Secretary Yellen, Janet Yellen, says don't read too much into that because she's expecting housing costs to feed into inflation in 2023. So that's going to be one factor that's going to continue to keep the prices of the stuff that we buy elevated. There is another factor, and that's the producer price index. The producer price index is the cost of companies to make stuff that you and I buy in the future. Well, the producer price index was still at about 8.5% as of last month. And that index itself is for making stuff that's going to be on the market over the next 2, 3, 4, 5 months. So if the cost of making stuff is 8.5%, let's all keep in mind, once that stuff gets to the market, that's going to filter down into consumer prices. Once I see this start to go down significantly, then I would be like, okay, inflation is definitely starting to cool. The other thing I want you to be aware of, this 8.5% that the government reports, you really got to take it with a grain of salt, because a lot of the core materials that go into a lot of companies' products are rising a lot more than 8.5%. This 8.5% is using like 1,000 different parameters in it. But if you drill down, you can see some of the differences are a lot higher. For example, your home builders that are making homes and using plywood, even though the cost of plywood has significantly decreased since just this year, it's still up 13% year over year. And that's for the cost of, that goes into a lot of different things to buy new homes or to outfit an existing home. The cost of building materials continues to rise. Building materials are up 17% year over year, not 8.5%, but 17%. These are the kinds of things that go into the homes that are being built that you're expected to sell. When you look at other costs like cement and concrete, that's up 15% year over year, and it continues to go up. So again, if you're in the business of selling new homes and new properties, newly constructed things, this cost of construction, even though the government's telling you it's only an 8.5% rise of producer prices, you can see that some of the core stuff that goes into construction has increased a lot more than that. Even things that are stainless steel, that's part of different products that are part of homes and houses and buildings themselves, was rising a lot as it is, down from like where it was, but still up 18% from where it was year over year. The cost of overall manufacturing is up 12% year over year. The cost of people that might be in the ag business, for the cost of food and supplies, fertilizer costs are still up about 8% year over year. But when you look at like feed and food for cattle and other animals, up 18% year over year, and they continue to be on an upward trend as well. Shipping products to get to construction sites, to get to where, for products to be sold, if anything is coming from overseas, those costs, although have been coming down just in the past month, still up 29% year over year. And once the stuff gets on the ground here in the US, whether it comes into California or someplace in the mid-Atlantic, it's costing about 10% more to ship stuff on the ground than it did year over year. All of that is factoring into the cost of doing stuff. And then what about labor? ADP, the big payroll company, they report, actual salaries from their actual employees on their actual customers' payroll. And here's what the salaries show. They show an increase of close to 8% for those people that stayed on their jobs this past year. Those people that left their jobs, the Great Resignation, saw on average an increase of close to 15% in salaries when they switched jobs. And I know what you're thinking, so stop thinking it, okay? The bottom line, though, is that if you take the average of these, you can see that the cost of compensation has been significant and more than just that 8.5% that the government is reporting. And by the way, I'm not even talking about what's been going on in fiscal and monetary policy. Our overall money supply, thanks to multiple stimulus deals, are up more than $6 trillion since the pre-pandemic. What this means is that we have a lot of money in the system that banks have available to be used. It's an oversupply of inventory, dollars inventory, compared to the demand that's needed for those dollars. We're in a slowing economy. So what happens, guys, when you have too much of something and not enough demand? What happens to the price of that something? It goes down. It loses value. That's why the dollar's losing value. That's why there was inflation as well. Fiscal and monetary policy have contributed significantly to the inflation challenge that we have right now. The good news is, though, is that from a supply chain perspective, you saw when I told you the port traffic and all of that, some of those costs that are under control and we're seeing some alleviation in some of those costs. When I look at the inflationary pressures, fiscal and management pressures, I've spoken to you before about all those interest rates going up, which I know affects mortgage rates, but it's the medicine that we have to take to limit the demand for this money, to draw down the supply of money, because we buy back the bonds without increasing and making the cost of money more expensive to borrow. So therefore, it draws down on this money coming into the system. That reduces inflation as well. It's going to take time. So we are looking at least through halfway through 2023, where we can start seeing some of those inflationary pressures start to come down. Until then, though, we're going to be in it for the rest of this, for the rest of it. So again, parts of the economy are in slowdown. South Carolina real estate cooled, but the market is still relatively strong. And when it comes across inflation, I am looking to see over the next 6 to 12 months, inflation continue at that 6 to 9% rate. So there's your data. Now, your question is, okay, I get it. We're in a slowing economy. I'm looking out to 2023. It's going to continue to be a challenge selling houses. My customers are going to be challenged with rising prices, potentially challenges at the companies that they work for, all that. What do I do? How do I navigate my way around it? You guys are in a great industry, but one part of your industry that you have to accept if you choose this as your life is that there are ups and there are downs. That is what real estate is all about. And my best clients understand those cycles and they work around with them. And they employ some tactics, some personal tactics to get around some of the challenges in this downturn. So let me just give you some advice of what I'm seeing my real estate clients do, not just my clients, but my readers across the country. What are they doing to navigate their way through this slowdown around the country that we're seeing over through 2023? And by the way, some parts of the country, you don't even want to be selling homes there compared to the way it is in South Carolina. Consider yourself lucky that the market in the region, particularly the Charleston region, has been quite strong relatively. So you're lucky that you're in the place that you are, but you're still going to be seeing some challenges. So let's talk about what some of the things you can do. So number one is know your financing alternatives. And this is for you and your customers, okay? If a customer is a business customer and they're looking to buy a property and they're struggling to get financing or they don't know, you need to point them towards the small business SBA loans. Because the SBA loans, the Small Business Administration, will provide financing up to $5 million for your customers to buy properties. These are business customers under 500 employees. The loans themselves are at or sometimes below market rates. But the key thing is that the SBA uses a network of bankers, and there are many of them in South Carolina, that are SBA certified bankers, that the money is guaranteed by the government, at least 80% of it is. So they're encouraged, they have to meet quotas, they want to lend this money out. So if you have a customer and they want to buy a property, but they're having a problem getting a loan, steer them to an SBA banker. If they're a business customer, they will be able to get some financing or more likely to do it to get that deal done. So make sure you know that financing alternative. It's a Section 7A or a 504 loan. The second financing alternative I want you to be aware of is the State Small Business Credit Initiative. $10 billion is coming from the Treasury Department. It started earlier this year. It's going to be coming this year and next year as well, all across the country to states. And the states are taking the money, South Carolina being one of them, and getting the money out to a bunch of approved firms. They are getting money to put out as loans. They're getting money to put out as equity investments. They're getting money to put out as grants, which means if you are trying to sell a property to a small business, for example, and they need financing and they can't get it, you need to look into the State Small Business Credit Initiative because they will be able to provide options for you to get that financing for your customers. Where do you go? Well, South Carolina is getting about $101 million this year in this SSBCI funding. So if you look at the BDC, JEDA, the Jobs Economic Development Authority, or the CDFA, all of these are organizations in your state that you can start with to get, to find out where that money is being funneled from the state. They're getting access to this money. They can connect you with the lenders and the people that can provide that financing for you and for your customers. So the State Small Business Credit Initiative, that is a big thing to consider this year. It was passed under COVID, and it was supposed to provide financing during COVID, and the government being what it is, couldn't get their act together until now. COVID is pretty much behind us. But okay, it's still out there and more money is coming, or you go to the Small Business Administration. So know your financing alternatives if you want to be selling real estate, particularly to small businesses, okay? 2, let's talk personally. You want to revisit your own personal financials this year as well. Get smarter about your numbers. So a couple of things, okay? I told you that interest rates are going up. Get rid of your credit card debt, for God's sake, because credit cards are the first vehicles that are being hit by increased interest rates. You may not know this because there is not a whole lot of requirements to report it to you, but what might have been a 17 or a 16% interest rate could be going up to 20, 21% legally by your credit card companies on any outstanding debt. Paid off, maybe refinance your credit card with a home equity loan Even at current mortgage rates, it's still like a third of the interest that you would be paying if you're paying down credit cards right now. It is just the right move to make to get out of the credit card business. Use a credit card if you want to just charge things, but then you're going to pay it off that month. But if you're using it as a financing vehicle for a longer period of time, not a great idea, particularly in this high interest, high inflation environment, okay? Number two, there was just a piece in the Wall Street Journal about this today, how there are billions of dollars out there that are not getting interest because frankly, we're all too lazy. I'm one of them, actually. What we all need to be doing is talking to our bankers. I literally made a note of this today for my accountant, my bookkeeper, to talk to our bank about changing over our checking accounts to an interest-bearing account. Many of our accounts are not interest-bearing. Many banks are starting to offer higher interest because they're in an higher interest environment. So we're losing money and leaving it on the table. Now these accounts become relevant. Maybe if you're younger, you're like, this, I don't even understand what a money market account is or an interest-bearing account it was, because fair enough, it was irrelevant when interest rates were like 0.1%. But now that interest rates, are up 6, 7, 8%, savings rates are now creeping up as well. Turn your money into interest-bearing accounts so you can at least grab a few extra dollars from that. Number three, if you're going to invest in blue chip mutuals, because I still think that blue chips, even though some of them have taken it on the chin over the past few months, are the best longest term bet. Because come on, you think the CEOs of these largest companies are going to let something like a little inflation or recession get the best of them? Longer term, they will continue to make the moves they got to have to please their shareholders. Be in an index fund with blue chip stocks, Fortune 500 or S&P 500 stocks as well. Also, if you're going to put your money away, buy treasury bills because they are dependent on interest rates. The higher the interest rate, the more the return. If you're going to buy a treasury bill, talk to your bank or your financial advisor about getting tips. A treasury inflation protected security. So even if you buy this bill with a certain amount of interest rate return, if inflation goes up, it'll automatically adjust itself. It won't lock yourself into a lower interest rate. So these became available, I forget how many years ago, not many people know about them, but it completely protects you from inflation if you buy TIPS, a treasury inflation protected security. Consider inflation resistant investments, okay? Utility stocks are great. Consumer necessities are great. And properties. So if I'm in the real estate business, I'm talking to a lot of my commercial clients and individuals that may have some wealth and make sure they understand that, listen, you can put your money under your mattress and lose money on it. You can put your money in the bank and earn a couple of percentage points. You can put your money in the stock market where who knows where it'll go. Hopefully it will go up. And if it's you're letting other people make those decisions, the CEOs of the companies you're invested in, or you can buy properties because you look back over history, property, equipment, but properties, real estate is always one of the best hedges against inflation. It rises with inflation. So one selling point that you're making with people is saying, listen, couldn't be but when you're in a high inflationary period, this is the time to buy property because it keeps up with inflation. It's something that you want to be considering to talk to your customers about. Finally, review all of your personal expenses. I recommend an app called Truebill. It's really good. Once you get it set up and hooked into your credit card and your banking accounts and all, it will go through and review all of your expenses and will automatically, with your approval, of course, cancel any subscriptions or things that you're not using. It will take care of all that work for you and help you analyze the expense that you're spending your money on. So all of that is very, very important. Doing some hustle with side gigs. I'm seeing this a lot in the real estate. You know what's funny about you guys? You sell real estate and then you're doing like 6 other things, which is great. There is a reason why there's been 15 million new startups created over the past 3 years. Million. Because a lot of people that have full-time jobs or in industries like real estate are doing other stuff as 1099 workers. They're hustling. So you also want to be hustling with side gigs as well. This is the number that I was talking about. These are all the new businesses that have been founded. Look how it spiked during COVID. A lot of those work from home employees weren't as busy as they said they were. So they were starting up these businesses during all that time. So hustle with side gigs as well. So know your financing alternatives. Revisit your personal financials as well. Forecast. Come on, guys. You got to forecast, whether it's you personally or if it's for your business. Know what your cash is going to be 90 days from now. How do you do that? Well, if you run a little business, a real estate business, using that as an example, you know what your overhead is, you know what your expenses are, you know what your rent might be, or your utilities, or if you've got employees, what your payroll might be. So you can easily know what your overhead is going to be over the next 90 days. All you need to do is you need to forecast what you think your sales and your commissions are going to be on those sales as well, just over 90 days. Think about that hard. Look at your backlog, look at your pipeline, look at what your open deals are that are potentially going to close and weight them the right way. Look ahead 90 days. Every month you should be rolling your cash forward 90 days in the future. The more that you know what your cash is going to be 90 days from now, the smarter decisions you will make. So sit down at the end of each month and think ahead. And I'm just asking 90 days. I'm not asking you to do the whole year, but just do that and you will be able to make smarter decisions because of it. Next, if there's anything that people do in a downturn, is they double down on tools and technologies to help them sell. So a lot of people invest in CRM applications. So just be aware, if you're running a big firm, these are some of the bigger players of CRM, Salesforce, Dynamics, Oracle, all these guys. For you guys in the real estate business and whatever, there's a bunch of great small and mid-sized business CRMs, starting with Zoho, going all the way down to Method CRM if you've got QuickBooks there. These applications over here, the big guys, they cost anywhere from like $100 to $200 a month a user. So they're expensive. And they're also for like big sort of enterprises. These applications, they're anywhere from like $15 to $40 a month a user. You can easily get single user or under 5 users of any of these different applications that are here. They will track your pipeline. They will track your contacts. They will integrate with your email system. They will make sure that nothing falls through the cracks. They will make sure that you've got follow-ups for everybody. Somebody you meet at a dinner or at a golf meeting that might be interested in a property 6 months from now, you want that person popping up on your follow-up 6 months from now. Then also it will build some value in your business too. If one day you ever want to sell your real estate firm, you can sell it knowing that there's a lot of great data in your CRM system. Customer relationship management system. If you notice, I don't have any real estate specific applications here, mainly because, not that there aren't some really good ones out there, but I'm telling you, these are less expensive and they will get the job done for you just as easily with just a very, very minor customization. So just keep in mind, all of these are really, really good. And I'm more than happy to talk with any specific ones after this presentation. You can email me, but CRM is a big thing. And by the way, when people talk about CRM, they integrate that with their websites. They integrate it with email services. They're integrating it to send bulk texts. They integrate it with their accounting systems. If you're doing projects, longer real estate development deals, they integrate it with project management software. And then they integrate it with anything else that might be out there using these tools, Zapier and Workato, to help them do that kind of stuff. Your CRM database should be the lifeblood of your real estate business. It should be everybody that you touch. Prospects, customers, whoever it may be, should be in your CRM database. It is that important to do. So what we've learned so far, parts of the economy in slowdown, price across all industries is significantly more. To stay ahead of a downturn, right? Encourage your commercial customers to get financing from the SBA and SSBCI. Revisit your own personal finances, a forecast, and invest in the CRM. I've got a few more tips of advice for you that I'll try to run through relatively quickly, okay? Secure yourself. Why is this important in a downturn? Because if you go down because of a security issue, you are going to have such headaches and problems getting yourself back up to where you are. It is going to be a big issue. And ransomware itself has increased more than 350% since the beginning of COVID back in March of 2020, because we've all been working from home and working remotely. So please listen to me. Don't disrupt your business, particularly during a downturn. This is the worst time to do it. You want to make sure that you are securing your data, whether it's individual or your firm. You want to make sure you're getting training to make sure that you can identify scams, bad email, malware, phishing attempts, anything like that. You want to make sure that you've got security software that's running on your system. You know, the McAfee and the Nortons and all of that, that are looking at and eliminating any potential threats. You want to make sure you're using a good password manager like Keeper or LastPass, for example, so that you can have complex passwords on any site that you go to, and then you can reference those sites if you forget them or you need that to be automatically prompting you with what those passwords are. You want to set up multi-factor authentication on your business's network so that people just can't log into their system. They need to get a text message sent to them with a code so that they could log in. You want to make sure that you're doing backups all the time. So God forbid if you ever get hit with any type of malware, you can restore yourself right away. And you want to make sure you've got a VPN system set up, a virtual private network. Try Ivacy or TunnelBear. You should not be connecting directly to a Starbucks router or a router in a hotel or, God forbid, an airport without a VPN. It encrypts all the data going back and forth for you and your employees so nobody can steal passwords and logins and create havoc in your system. In addition, you want to consider hosting your system with a managed service provider, somebody that hosts data and applications. You don't want that all in your office. You want to make sure that you're upgrading your operating systems all the time so that you're running the most recent versions of Windows and iOS and Chrome so that whoever the malware people that are out there, they're going to ignore you because they're going to go after the low-hanging fruit, the older databases that are out there that haven't been upgraded. You want to make sure that you've reconfigured your home router because I know your home router. I've seen your home router. You've got the same password on it that came from Linksys when you bought that home router. I know it. And I can go to Linksys's website and get that password and just drive by your house and get access to your network just because of that. So you need some reconfiguration done of your router. Finally, you need some cyber insurance as well because every good business has that clause in their insurance policies in case you are hit. Protect yourself during a recession. This is the time to do it in a slowdown period to make sure that you have got all those I's dotted and T's crossed. All of these things, couple more. Check your status. Big warning. If you are an independent contractor or if your firm has independent contractors, salespeople potentially, big changes in the rules. Right now, we went back, going back to May of 2021, the Biden administration and others, the Department of Labor, have gone out and have started the process of changing independent contracting rules. This is coming. So before, all of these were the economic realities. I'm not even going to go through them all because it was all just determined whether or not an independent contractor is independent. Here's what's coming in early 2023, what's called the ABC test. If you have independent contractors in your business, potentially salespeople that are 1099s, number one, they've got to be completely free from your control to do what they got to do. That's fine. Number two, they got to be engaged in this trade all the time. That's also fine. Here's the kicker. If that person is not, he has to be generating work outside of your business, meaning that if you've got a salesperson potentially or an independent contractor that's generating money for your business, you're charging a customer for their services, you're passing it through to them, that person might have to be classified as an employee starting in 2023. So that has a big impact on this industry. Be aware of that if you want to be managing your business and yourself correctly over the next year. Just a couple other things. This is a list of all of the hot benefits that I am seeing among all of my clients this year. So if you are a real estate firm and you're looking to expand or hire people or attract the best people to your business, these are the kinds of benefits that they are going to be expecting. Besides healthcare and flexibility, they're going to be, and retirement, hiring bonuses are really big for them. Use the work opportunity tax credit to help pay for a hiring bonus. Mental health benefits, very, very important to people. Student debt assistance, dependent care assistance, paying people on the same day if they're hourly workers, also a very, very hot benefit this year. And I am seeing a ton of companies set themselves up for employee-owned companies as well. Because not only does it provide significant tax benefits, but it is a great benefit to provide to your employees by giving them some equity in your company. It doesn't have to be control. Some equity keeps them loyal, keeps them more productive, and many studies have shown that employee-owned companies are more profitable than other companies as well. So these are all, again, in a slowdown year, it's all about getting the best talent in there to help you with your business. And these are the hot benefits that I'm seeing my clients and other people in my community offer to attract the best people in. Finally, talk a little bit about, these are all, what we've learned so far, but let's talk a little bit about, so we have taxes. because I am a CPA, if you haven't figured it out by the look of this, okay? So just a couple bits of tax advice for you, then I'll leave you go. I am seeing a big uptick in customers doing sale leasebacks of property because property values are still up. You could sell, you can get a check for your property, which is a big part of a business owner's business, and then they do a long-term leasing deal where they can then deduct the rental payments, the lease payments over time, the full amount of the payment. So if you've got commercial customers, encourage them. This is the time to do sale leasebacks, particularly if they're looking to exit their business at some time in the next few years. It's a first step to exiting your business. Number two, I'm seeing a lot of people take advantage of bonus depreciation. When you buy a property, you can carve out certain things from it, the piping, the electrical system, the sprinkler system, as equipment, and therefore you can take excess depreciation against it. You can write it off the whole year. So again, if a person is resisting a sale, a commercial client, you say to them, listen, if you buy this property, there's parts of the property that you can deduct, take a tax deduction for this year, not over 39 and a half years, which is the typical deduction for property. So that's another thing to bear in mind. Personally, if you've got a 401k, it's probably declined a little bit this year because of the stock market. Get rid of it, distribute some cash out of it, and open up a Roth IRA. You'll pay taxes when you distribute the money out, but if you distribute the money out, you'll pay less taxes because markets are down. You can take that money and you can convert it to a Roth IRA. This is for people over the age of 59. If you've got stock that has fallen in price over the past year as well, sell it, take that capital loss, offset it against any gains that you might have, wait 30 days, buy the stock back. That's what the rules are. So you don't have to get out of that stock personally. You can just take the big loss benefit this year against any gains and then buy the stock back in a month's worth of time. And finally, if you've got a business that's got employees and you suffered any type of interruption during COVID, there is still time to apply for the employee retention tax credit. It could be as much as $26,000 per employee from 2021. You can go back and amend your payroll tax returns. You would get back from the government by applying for this tax credit. It was a COVID-related tax credit that still is in existence and still very, very popular. So guys, that's it. These are some of the strategies and actions that I want you to take this year in the midst of the downturn that we are heading into. So let me wrap up. Parts of the economy are in a slowdown. South Carolina real estate, still relatively strong, okay, but still looking at a bit of a slowdown this next year. Price across all industries, risen more than the producer price index. So just be aware that those are the pressures. We're going to continue to see inflation for the next 6 to 12 months. To stay ahead of this downturn, encourage your commercial customers to get financing from the SBA or the State Small Business Credit Initiative. Revisit your personal finances forecast, invest in CRM. Minimize your disruptions of loss during a downturn by making sure everything is secured. Be aware of those new worker classification rules for independent contractors. If you have employees, these are all the hot benefits that you want to consider because it's all about bringing in great talent during a slowdown to take advantage of it and position yourself for the future. And finally, make some tax moves now for both 2022 and 2023. There's Roth IRA conversions, sale leasebacks for your customers, equipment carve-outs when they buy real estate, wash sales. These are all good tax strategies, not only to save you on taxes, but to help your customers get a deal done if they don't realize that there are some of these tax advantages that are available to them. All right, that was a lot for 45 minutes, wasn't it? So listen, if you have any questions or you would like a copy of this presentation, feel free to email me. This is my email address here. Happy to send you a PDF for the whole presentation. All this stuff that I talk about is what I write about. So I write for The Guardian, I write for Forbes, I write for the Philly Inquirer, Washington Times, The Hill, Entrepreneur. Everything I write in all these different places, I put on my Medium account. Plus my podcasts are there as well. So if you want to stay current on these issues, like day to day, follow me on medium.com and you'll get the updates of all the different things that I contribute. Geez, I went 3 minutes over. I'm really sorry, but that's what I got for you now. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to talk with you. I want to wish you guys very happy holidays and thank you so much.